Well, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jan Culbertson and Leadership Chair of the 2030 District, and I want to welcome you to this is sort of the second multifamily meeting that we've had, and we're going to schedule them probably quarterly, and we do have the date of the next meeting, which is going to be September 22nd. We'll keep them by Zoom and keep them from 12 to 1. And we have a pretty simple agenda today. We're going to kind of do a quick round robin of introductions so we can kind of know who's here. And then Zach is going to talk a little bit about the Green Rental Housing Ordinance and has some time for some questions. Also, I wanted to note that Tamika Banks is here, and Tamika is the person behind the Energy Partnership. So for those of you that have been benchmarking, Tamika is the one that's been working with us on getting all the energy data from DTE into Energy Star Portfolio Manager from the DTE Data Hub. And then we'll spend just a little bit of time if there are some topics that are important to this group. We're open to having this sort of a group saying these are the things that we want to discuss, and we can brainstorm kind of the things that we want to explore or get some more information on, or just have a time to share thoughts and hopefully some successes and issues and barriers all around meeting the 820 plan for Ann Arbor. So with that, Zach, why don't you start, and I'll just kind of go around my screen, and if you could introduce yourselves.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm seeing some familiar names and familiar faces here, but for those of you who I don't yet know, my name is Zach. I work in the Office of Sustainability and Innovations at the City of Ann Arbor. My title is Community Engagement Specialist, and I do a lot of work involving the sustainability of buildings throughout Ann Arbor. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about that during my presentation here, but thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
And Joe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Lang. I work with Zach at the Office of Sustainability and Innovations at the city. I just started last week, so I'm picking up on things, but I will be working on the Green Rental Housing Program, among a bunch of other things going on. So good to meet y'all and looking forward to learning more.
Doug Selby.
Hey y'all, my name is Doug. I am a co-founder of Metal Art Design Build. These days working on another company called Volta Homes, which specializes in deep energy modular buildings. And in fact, I am in the process of substantially rebuilding pretty much all of our rentals over the next, which is not that many, but over the next 5 years. To comply with, basically zero energy construction standards. But I do have one coming up that is before the city right now at 530 North Division, which again should be a net positive energy project at the end, and hopefully something that can be an example for other contractors on how to do this type of work.
Wayne Appleyard. I'm an architect, and I was on the Energy Commission for a very long time and have been involved in a lot of green stuff for a very long time.
Thanks. Bonnie.
Unmute. Bonnie Greenspoon. I'm an architect in Ann Arbor and do a variety of projects, including single and multifamily projects, and I'm here to listen in.
Sydney. Okay. So Sydney did our intro via chat. So, and Sydney's working with us as a 2030 intern and doing a lot of the benchmarking work this summer. Emily Hawes.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm the community manager at Sterling Arbor Blue downtown, and I'm here to listen in.
All right, welcome. Bill. See, maybe Bill stepped away for a bit. Karen Barney.
Hi, I am.
You're breaking up just a bit. Let's see. Okay, Tamika.
Oh, wrong one. Why
Hi,
is
everybody.
it
My name
showing
is
my shoe?
Tamika. My name is Tamika Banks. I am the EWR Energy Services Supervisor at DTE. As Jan mentioned, I am the one who has been spearheading or leading the Data Hub enrollment. So if anyone hasn't touched base with me before, you're probably in the near future.
Great. All right, Denise, close.
Hi, everyone. I'm Denise. I'm an architect with Quinn Evans. In town, we do a lot of multifamily work, often in historic buildings, but also some new builds, mostly on the Mid-Atlantic right now. But we're just looking to expand, and we have been part of the Ann Arbor 2030 district for quite some time. So here to find out some more.
Okay, great. And we have, let's see, is it Roger from McKinley on the phone?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Roger. I work at McKinley Properties in downtown Ann Arbor, and we own about 20 or so apartment rentals buildings in Ann Arbor.
All right. Then did Bill or Karen Varney want to, I don't know if you were able to unmute and get, or if you want to just put something in the chat, that would be great too. Okay, Ken.
That'd be me, Ken Land of Ann Arbor.
All right.
Internationally known.
Internationally known. All right.
The audience is very small, but it is international.
Great. Okay. Good. Well, I think we've got pretty much everyone here. So then I'll just, oh, Irwin, I forgot you. Irwin.
I apologize for my lateness.
Yeah.
Is the moderator, I don't see a face. Are you 517?
Nope, that is, that's Roger from McKinley. I'm Jan Culbertson and leadership chair of the 2030 district, and I'm moderating today.
I don't, oh, Jan, I see you, got it, Culbertson. Oh,
Yes.
oh, Jan, okay, I thought it was gonna be a man because of Jan.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, oh, yeah, okay, Jan, okay.
Yeah, Kevin McNeely, who was going to moderate, is tied up, and so hey, you know, I'll be back up. Anyway, Irwin, did you want to introduce yourself?
Of course, I'm Irwin Weingarten. I am part of the 2030 district, and I am a property manager in town. You can see I'm not the driver. My wife is the driver, but driving to Sedona right now. So I've also been working with Zach. I've been on the Ann Arbor's task force, green housing task force. And that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good. All right. Are you going to mute me or do I mute myself? How do I do that?
Either way.
Okay.
Great. All right. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Zach. And we're going to kind of get an overview of the process of the green rental housing, what's, you know, kind of where it is in the sort of approval process, and how we're sort of working with the city to make it a successful ordinance. So Zach, why don't you go ahead?
Great, thanks, Jan. Great to be here today. Thanks for allowing me to share a little bit about the Green Rental Housing Program. And this is something that we've been working on for, just about a couple years now. So we're excited to see it getting closer to a reality, coming to fruition here. So stepping back just a little bit to talk about, to kind of frame the conversation about green rental housing. I believe most of you are aware of A20, but just to cover the ground, it's Ann Arbor's plan for carbon neutrality by 2030. In this plan, there are 7 strategies that outline how we can achieve this goal as a community. One of those strategies is improving the efficiency of buildings, all buildings in Ann Arbor. And so there are a number of different ways that we have to do that because there are a number of different types of building uses. And so we last year passed a benchmarking ordinance. This is an ordinance that probably some of you are already familiar with. If you have a commercial property that's over 100,000 square feet, that first deadline was June 1st. There are 2 more deadlines in subsequent years. So ultimately, commercial buildings over 20,000 square feet will have to report energy use. And so that's something that is already in place. Something coming up that isn't green rental housing is the home energy rating disclosure, which will focus more on owner-occupied homes during the real estate transaction when they're sold. And then there's green rental housing, and that's what I'll talk to you about today. Excuse me, it's got some loud noises out the window. So, and so the green rental housing is an action that is explicitly named in the A20 plan to help us reduce emissions that come from rentals. To a little more info on that is that about 40% of our total community-wide greenhouse gas emissions come from the electricity use in buildings. And if you include gas in that, it's about 2/3 of our overall emissions come from buildings. Combine that with the fact that about 55% of the city's housing stock are rentals. It demonstrates a lot of room, potential improvement. And so there aren't any existing initiatives that target these emissions. And so that's what green rental housing is designed to do. And so Irwin mentioned that he was on the task force. We convened a task force of tenants and landlords to help us identify what this program could look like. And so this task force met between 2021 and early 2022. It just wrapped up in February or March. And what came of that are some pathways in which we could help rentals improve efficiency. To touch on those briefly, there is what came of that. It's just FYI, it's all still a proposal right now. There's nothing in place. I'll talk a little bit more about the timeline and when we expect to see some of this stuff move forward in just a moment. But a brief overview of the policy elements are that there is an appliance efficiency. So that focuses on all basic systems in any rental. So heating sources, if there are cooling sources, if there is a dishwasher, for instance, but also like the refrigerator and cooking appliances, and using essentially Energy Star as a metric for making sure that what are in our rentals are as efficient as possible to reduce the amount of emissions that come from those appliances. And then there is an efficiency pathway looking at the rental unit overall. And we designed a couple of different pathways for landlords to choose from to improve the efficiency. And one of them is a performance-based pathway. someone earlier, I don't want to call you out by name, you can mention it if you want, is having some energy audits done. I think he said later this month. And that would be the route for performance, is that we would designate a HERS rating of 110 or better. And you can get an energy audit from a local auditor and do whatever it takes to get to 110 in your unit. If your unit meets 110, great, you don't have to do anything. But part of getting that audit will be recommendations from the auditor about how you can improve your score. So you can just choose from that list, whatever makes the most sense for you. The other pathway for this policy is a prescriptive pathway. So that involves a checklist. This was built off of the existing rental housing program. So there is an inspection program in place right now. It focuses primarily on safety concerns. So making sure there are smoke detectors and that the locks are in good working order, and the basic systems, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical systems are in good working order. But what it doesn't include are efficiency standards. And so that's where this prescriptive checklist comes into play. It essentially lists a series of items of things that you can do to improve the efficiency of your rental. And there's a point value assigned to each item. And so these are things like swapping out all of the light fixtures for LEDs, because LEDs are far more efficient. It goes all the way through addressing some of the attic insulation, maybe the floor insulation, if that's a possibility. Of course, then you can get points for having efficient appliances as well. Overall, electrifying the unit or the building, switching off of gas to electric appliances. And there's a long list of things, and you can select from these items as you see fit and as is most appropriate for your unit or your building. And just to maintain that, there will be a point value minimum that will be assigned to it. So you can do whatever it takes to get that point minimum. And that is designed to allow the flexibility for that. This was something, as it was proposed, that has moved to legal review so that we can get their feedback from it. Simultaneously, we have been continuing to meet with landlords and auditors and engineers throughout, and architects, lots of different people, to get feedback on the checklist as it was written. And we've been getting a lot of really good feedback. And so we are working on revising the checklist. So if you are already familiar with that checklist, if you've already seen that, what I can tell you right now is that the final version of that will likely not look exactly like this current revision. We are still working on what some of those things will look like, but just to give you kind of a sneak peek, we're separating out some of the point values that will be required for each unit in a building, and then point values that can be obtained for that entire building. For instance, an attic is only going to apply to the top floor, and it doesn't apply necessarily to all commercial buildings. Attic insulation I'm referring to. And so why have the same requirements for the ground level unit as for the top level unit? So we'll be separating some of those things out to make that a clearer pathway. We are also looking at a phased approach. I can't promise that this will make it into the final cut, but we're anticipating that we'll probably see that at your first inspection cycle, you'll see a different point minimum requirement than at your second or third, for instance. And so that's just to allow landlords and property managers more time and flexibility to make the changes necessarily to meet with the requirements. Let's see. What else? Finally, there will also be an efficiency disclosure. So whatever route you choose, if you choose the checklist or the performance pathway, the results of that will be made public. And that's nothing new. Already, anybody can find the certificate of compliance. They can find the inspection history for any rental property. So that stuff is already publicly available. We're just mentioning that this would also be publicly available. And so it's the one thing that I want to highlight right now is that the goal of this is carbon emissions reductions. That's what we're focusing on with green rental housing. And so in considering that we need to reduce the amount of carbon that's being emitted into the atmosphere, we are accompanying this policy with a suite of resources for both tenants and landlords. And we want to be able to provide whatever resources we're able to help all rentals be as efficient as possible. And so we're going to do that in two ways. One is for informational resources. We want to make it as easy as possible for tenants and landlords to find information about the new policy, about whatever requirements are in it, and what they need to do to be in compliance with the policy. Additionally, we're going to have dedicated staff. There's myself. Joe introduced himself a moment ago, and we'll have staff available to answer questions and to help everyone gain access to what it is that they need to succeed. We're going to be doing a lot of internal training, so that involves with our inspectors, and we'll also be making external trainings available as well. So to landlords, to tenants, as you see fit. And I would love to hear from you if there's a resource that you would like that you're not seeing, let us know. The goal here is to help landlords and property managers reduce their carbon emissions. That's what we're aiming for here. And so if there's something that you need, please let us know. So back to the resources, I just discussed the informational. There are also financial resources that we want to make sure are as available as possible. One of those is something that already exists, which is Michigan Saves. This is a program, if you're not familiar, statewide. They call themselves a green bank, and they connect property owners with both contractors who do electrification and energy efficiency work, and funding sources that are, they essentially offer a loan loss reserve program that sort of supports lower interest rates and over longer terms. And so they can make financing certain projects far more accessible. Also coming up, if you haven't heard yet, in November of this year, there is a climate millage going for vote in Ann Arbor, and there is a certain capital that will be made available if that passes, specifically for energy efficiency improvements, such as what you might need to do if you need to do it. And on that note of if you need to do it, we are expecting that 85%, 90% of rentals are going to have no problem with this policy. There are a few rentals in the city that are in that maybe 10% there, that we want to simply bring up that bottom end. These are really old rentals that maybe haven't seen any work in a really long time. And so we want to help reduce the energy burden on the tenants who are living there. We want to help the landlords increase the investment in that property. And we want to make the resources available to them to help do that so that we can reduce the overall carbon emissions. Finally, under financial resources, the OSI continues to pursue grant funding, either through philanthropic funds or federal funds, and there are even a few state funds available. It's incredible how much how many funding opportunities are continuing to be made available for things like this. That I think that there is a lot of market interest in sustainability, and so we will continue pursuing those and making funds available as possible. So just to kind of wrap up here and move on to questions, the sort of the timeline that we're working on right now is that the policy as it was written and proposed went to legal in April, I believe. And so it was, I think, late April or early May, and we're waiting to hear back and get their comments. Like I said, we have already begun to make some changes based on the feedback that we continue to get from landlords, and we will incorporate those together. And once we have the legal comments and public input, we'll move forward with those to the task force. We'll reconvene the task force who helped write this policy, so that they can see what we've come up with. That final draft we'll do some more public engagement. We want to get, we did a large survey throughout February and March on the policy, and we got some good feedback from both tenants and landlords on that. We want to do a deeper dive. So once we have this final draft, before it goes to council, we'll do some more community engagement, do some more one-on-one conversations, and we'll really focus on quality of feedback over quantity of feedback, so that we can gain as deep an understanding as possible on what is working and what needs improvement. Hopefully what we'll learn is that we will have nailed it by that second time and it won't need much improvement at all. And then it'll go before council. And we'll certainly be in touch, but in the meantime, we're going to continue working on the resources so that throughout that process, we have everything ready for tenants and landlords, ready to go out the gate. There will be a latency period between when this ordinance goes before council and when the first inspections will need to comply. And we are tying that in intentionally so that it gives us an opportunity to make sure that we're doing the engagement that we need to do to bring everybody up to speed. And it also gives landlords and property managers the time that they need to make any changes up front, and just to familiarize themselves with the new policy. So on that note, that's an overview of Green Rental Housing. I'm happy to answer any questions here.
Okay, thank you, Zach. And I do want to add that the Ann Arbor 2030 district also has some resources for members. And that includes, if you are a member of the district, depending on sort of your total square footage and so forth, we make somewhere between $2,500 and $5,000 available for an energy audit. This also could go towards a HERS rating kind of energy audit too. So if there are some folks that aren't members yet, you can contact me about that. So I want to kind of open it up for questions, and if folks would just kind of use your, either physically raise your hand or use the raise your hand button, that'd be great. And I see Doug, you were starting to raise your hand there.
Yeah, just a quick question about what you just said. So you're saying that the $25,000 grant could be used for HERS rating for landlords in town then?
Yeah, $2,500 grant. Yeah. So we typically have, make ASHRAE level 2 energy audits available to members, and depending on how many buildings and so forth, it's some from $2,500 to $5,000. So that could be applied, yes, to a HERS rating type of audit as well.
The reason I ask is that, I think, look, I'm in favor of this. I think it's important to move in this direction, but I'm just also thinking about all the landlords out there that are going to probably have a big beef with it and stuff like that. And one of the things that's going to be really difficult about it is just how confusing the subject can be with, you know, the varying differentials of every type of building out there that, so, you know, wondering if the city can find some funding in some way or whatever to at least get landlords, you know, a blower door test, a HERS rating, those types of things, so that they can at least know how to improve their properties, because otherwise I could see there being a whole lot of confusion about exactly what they should do and how the city's gonna rank that or whatever. And what I would hate is for somebody who's like, say, an inspector or something like that, who maybe doesn't have the greatest understanding of the subject matter, you know, sort of making up things as they go along. And I think that, just to be perfectly frank, I think that in the city of Ann Arbor, the rules are sometimes enforced on almost an inspector by inspector basis. You know, for instance, one will say I like it this way, and another will say I like it that way, and so you know, I just think it's really important to have some consistency in there and to help landlords understand what they need to do in a more complete fashion, because sometimes, you know, that information can be very helpful on how to target their work.
Yeah, certainly. And that's where the resources that I mentioned come into play. We're going to be already have begun coordinating some inspector trainings so that they know what to expect and that they are all on the same page when it comes to this new policy. It will also be providing as many resources as possible. So yeah, I appreciate that feedback. We want to make sure that it is as straightforward as possible. And so, you know, we went back and forth with this actually in deciding the checklist, having a single checklist versus having different checklists for different types of properties, because one is a little bit confusing if there are things if we all have one checklist, but some of those things don't apply to your property. That can be confusing. Like, wait, why am I being expected to do this one thing? What is this point value for?
Well, right, exactly. And that particular thing on the checklist might be completely useless for that property. So right. There's where the subjectivity comes in, and there is where the city needs to be a partner, not be a offer a carrot, not a hammer.
Absolutely. And that, you know, again, I'll highlight that the goal here is carbon emissions reductions. That's what we're aiming for. This policy is something that is being driven by the Office of Sustainability, not the building department. And so with that as our guiding star, if you will, it changes the focus to what's effectively being done at a given property to help reduce emissions, to help reduce the energy demand of that property. And that's where our focus will continue to be. And if we find that more resources or more clarity is needed, we're trying to incorporate a way that we can make that administrative change without a council approval on the fly. So if we see something that comes up that is an issue, we want to be able to address it as quickly as possible to make sure that it is as smooth a process as possible for everyone.
Tamika, I have a question for you. And I know DTE has a multifamily kind of energy waste reduction program. And I'm just wondering if there's anyone that we could talk to, because each year you update your programs, and if there'd be someone that we could talk to perhaps about looking at a pilot for HERS ratings or some other type of thing that could also support some of this, because it is directly related to energy waste reduction.
I'm actually taking notes for this meeting so I can pass it over to the multifamily group. The one thing I wanted to find out is that, do you have a time frame of when you think this ordinance or program will be implemented?
We're hoping it will go before council before the end of this year. Again, it depends on our internal legal department, who is reviewing it right now. They are working on legal department time. And what I mean by that isn't that they're slow, but that they have a lot of work to do already. And they do a great job of doing their job, which is to be really thorough and make sure that what's going through makes sense from a legal standpoint. And so we have overwhelmed them. The Office of Sustainability have overwhelmed them. In case you didn't know, I'm going to go on a side tangent just briefly, that on Monday, we had a few things pass council, including signing a contract with a company to install solar and battery storage systems on city facilities throughout the city, and to get some EV chargers installed for public use. And so those are the kinds of things that we have been keeping legal busy with. Those have passed. The more things that pass council, the closer we get to getting some feedback. But once we get that and we do the proper engagement, again, like Doug was mentioning, those are really valid concerns, and we want to make sure that those things are appropriately addressed. And so we'll do the engagement that we need to do to make sure that this policy is ready to move forward. But we anticipate that we should be able to do that within the next 6 months and get this before council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for Zach?
This is Roger. Can you hear me?
Yes, let's go ahead, Roger.
Oh, hey, Zach, how you doing?
Good.
Question for you. As part of the inspection process, is there going to be a lot of double checking, or is it more the owner certifies? So, for example, we'll have our facilities director and maintenance team score our apartment complexes, but when the inspector comes out, are they going to double check everything, or is it going to more the owner certifies?
There will be a double checking process. So it's kind of a bit of both. So the owner or property manager will submit the checklist with what they believe they've done and say, yep, I've done the LEDs, I've done this, I've done that. And then the inspector at this point is just checking like, okay, yep, you did this, you did do that, good to go. And then the HERS rating, if you submit the HERS rating from the auditor, then that's the HERS rating. If you're going the performance pathway, so that's simply what we would do currently is what's called a record check, which is just submitting documentation that something has been done and or the results are sufficient. So you just submit your documentation if you do the performance pathway that says, yes, I meet the HERS rating of 110. And that doesn't require any double checking.
Gotcha, I see. And so if say an owner scores a 55, is there going to be like, you have 6 months to rectify the situation, or is there some sort of correction period?
Yeah, so similarly to the existing inspection process, if there are certain items that are not in compliance or don't meet the sufficient minimums, then you are given a certain window of time. Yep, they just say, here's what didn't meet and what you need to do. And then we'll just come back and do a reinspection. Once you say, yep, I've got it done, then the inspector will just come back and double check and mark it off from there. So very similar to the current inspection process.
Okay, great.
Can I ask a concern I have on that is, maybe it wasn't to ask it more explicitly, you know, some of these things, when you get an inspection, you have at most, you know, somewhere between a week and a month to get verification that you've done things. But some of these things can't happen in a month. Right now, it's hard to get anyone to do any work. And if you're going to need to do something major, especially, I don't know, certain things can take 6 months to do, and a landlord does not want to not have a certificate of compliance for 6 months. So, you know, some of these things just don't happen overnight. Like you can do, I mean, you can change the battery on a smoke detector right away, and you can call a plumber in to add the proper pipe vents or whatever like that, you know, underneath the sink or whatever for the dishwashers and all that. But, you know, you might not be able to get someone to come in and do the caulking and then verification that something's been done with, you know, with a blower door test and all that. And so it is a different type of inspection and verification, and it might have a longer timeline. So I'm not sure how that's going to be built in. I'm not sure it is built in, and I think that might be something that, for example, that it needs. I'm not sure how to build it in yet, but it's something similar to, you know, what Doug said earlier, that the inspectors are going to need to know how this can affect. They're going to need to know, can I give a certificate of compliance, still even knowing that this is going to take longer than a normal.
Yeah. So this is, oh, Doug, I see you talking, but you're still muted.
I was going to say, it, particularly these days, that could take several months to get this kind of work done, being is that there's probably multiple subcontractors and you can't really do it yourself and all that. So I think being tied to a C of O continuance would be a mistake, or at least, you know, a reasonable time frame, 3-4 months at a minimum to get all the parts done. Good point.
Yeah, these are good points. As I mentioned, there is a 6-month leeway between the time that this policy, if it passes council, and the time of the first inspections that will be subject to this policy. So there is a 6-month leeway that is built in particularly for this purpose. Accompanying that, the Rental Housing Services Department will be doing direct outreach to landlords who have an inspection coming up, and they'll be notifying them at least 6 months in advance that, hey, just so you know, at your next upcoming inspection, there are new requirements, and here is the policy, to give those landlords as much notice as possible. So with that 6-month buffer, we believe that should address most of the timing issues. But also, again, this is something that is being pushed by the Office of Sustainability, and we have already begun discussions with the building department to identify ways that we can incorporate certain flexibilities for things like this. Also with supply chain issues, we understand that that's something that has been slowing things down. And so we are trying to be as respectful of these things as possible. Again, we're focusing on success of the program here as much as possible. And in addition to that, I'll also add that we're trying to balance that threshold that where 85 to 90% of properties won't have a problem incorporating this. So when you start talking about subs and subs of subs, that will be, I think, a few and far between. And the city we are interested in offering the resources to help those properties get up to par, more so than we are in restricting them from a certificate of compliance. So great questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Zach, I do have a question, and that is, you know, obviously this is going to take a little bit more time. And has anyone looked at, you know, the inspection fees and whether there's going to be an increase in those fees?
We're not anticipating an increase in inspection fees for this. So this will just fall in line with the existing inspection process, and therefore we don't anticipate that it will.
How can you say that? You're now asking inspectors to do more work.
Well, most of the work is just cross-referencing, and they're already coming to the unit to do an inspection for other items. It's not drastically more work. They're already conducting an inspection, and this is just a few other things for them to look at while they're there.
Okay, easy to say from our end. The inspectors will have to do that. Also, do you have data that tells that where you can be confident that 85% to 90% of the properties will pass? Because I know that you've had feedback that says contrary to that, that says there's such a high percentage of properties in Ann Arbor that are older than a certain age, and they're not going to pass. So where do you get this 85 to 90% of properties will pass?
Thank you.
How'd you come up with that number?
Yeah, great question. So we have been getting some feedback from landlords who have already put their properties through the hoops, so to speak, and challenged their properties against this checklist. And the feedback that we're getting, like I said, we're already making some adjustments based on that feedback to make it more attainable. We're relying on landlords for that feedback so that we can adjust these numbers as possible. And so that's where some of these changes come into play, like this phased in approach that we mentioned. That what that would do is lower the point value required at the first inspection, so that it lowers the bar for more landlords. And that we anticipate that we're going to strike that balance through the continued.
Are you willing to share that?
I'd like to enter into this dialogue.
I
got a lot of
Hang on
questions.
just a second. We do need to do kind of one at a time. So Irwin, if you can, I think we want to give constructive feedback, and we don't want to get into an argumentative kind of mode. So if you could kind of finish up, Irwin, and then Ken will go on to you.
I guess my last question is, will you share that data?
I'm sorry, which data are you requesting?
The data, so you say you've got feedback. Will you share that feedback?
Well, yeah, it'll come in the form of the the next revision of the checklist and policy changes. And so that is something that we'll share again with landlords and continue to get feedback from that as well.
What's the timing to share that? I'll end with this. I'm following up. I just have to tell you, I'll end. I'm with you. I want this to be successful, but I'm not getting the feeling that it's being shared in a timely manner. I'll end it with that.
Okay, thank you. Ken, do you have a couple of questions?
I do, and I don't want to be impolite to Irwin. Irwin, I'd like to talk to you. I'm going to leave you my phone number on a private chat. I want to say, my name is Ken Land. I've lived in Ann Arbor. If you hear noise in the background, I'm having my house insulated right now, and the cost of it is $8,000 to have my private home insulated. So I've been in Ann Arbor for 55 years, before most of you have been born. I came here as a U of M student in 1967. I derived my entire retirement from income property. I'm trying to understand, this has only been coming to my attention recently through the Washtenaw Area Apartments Association, which I've recently become a member. This is news to me until they informed me. You are using a phrase, certificate of compliance, and I want to know, is that synonymous with certificate of occupancy?
No. No, thank you for clarifying. The certificate of compliance is specific to rental housing services. Certificate of occupancy precedes that, certificate of occupancy is not what you receive from rental housing services. You receive a certificate of compliance.
Okay, that's very important. I know enough about economics to be dangerous. If you want to get people to do stuff, you want to provide an incentive to use less fossil fuel, an incentive to use less fossil fuel, and an incentive to create more sustainable renewable energy. The way this is set up is it's a punishment for using fossil fuel. That's antithetical to the unanimous information of the world's economists. So the direction is fundamentally flawed. You want to provide an incentive. Economics is about incentive. Incentive to not use fossil fuel, incentive to create renewable energy. This ordinance, as I'm looking at it now, does neither of those two things. Secondly, if I have to comply with these, I looked at this list. To get a 65 out of that, I will not be able to run my properties for 20 years profitably. And by that time, I'll be 93 years old and I will not be able to live off of it. And secondly, no one will buy these properties in their right mind, thinking they're going to have to buy into an unprofitable situation that will be the timeline is prohibitive to have those properties have any value. This is what I'm looking at. If I am forced to comply with the 65 number in order to rent the building, I'm terrified of this. Terrified of it, that I will not be able to make a living because of the superimposition of a punishment for energy policy. Now, that having been said, I hug trees, I eat granola, I ride a bicycle, I rarely drive my car, I do as much energy efficiency as I possibly can, I recycle. I believe in it tremendously. The direction of a punishment is unjust. Secondly, you mentioned a 50% number of occupancy being of rental units. Then the other 50% of non-rental units is completely ignored. And so then I'm feeling you're singling me out as a landlord to comply with a very noble and correct gesture. What about the other half? Why are we leaving them alone and instead targeting landlords? That is discrimination by identifying a group, calling that group they, and then enforcing something selectively on them. That is called discrimination.
So,
Ken, yeah, do you want to address that? Because Ken,
So there's a lot of questions, but starting
Yeah.
from the top down, if I cannot rent those buildings, for example, just to put a front door, a new front door that's all doesn't leak and it's all insulated and all this, $5,000. Why? First of all, just to get it past the Old West Side Association, we're talking about a permit process that is virtually impenetrable unless you comply with a very, very strict set of rules. So there's $1,000 just to get that permit. Uninstalled unit, $2,000 to get someone to install it, to refit that whole doorway, another $2,000. To get 1 point on that list, $5,000.
So yeah, okay. So I'd like to address some of these things. I appreciate that what you're sharing is that this, what you're getting from your rental properties is really important. And the last thing we want to do is be unduly burdening anybody.
Thank you.
And so a couple of things to that note. First of all, you mentioned the 65-point value. At the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned that that's under review right now. So I please keep in mind that the current checklist is very likely not going to be what
it's prohibitive.
Through. Yeah, and we've heard that from a lot of landlords, and I thank you for reaffirming that, because that means that we are moving in the right direction with our revision. So I appreciate hearing this feedback, because that is similar feedback to what we've heard from other landlords, and so we are working right now to address that by changing the structure of that point value system so that it makes more sense and is more attainable. Secondly, from that like carrot versus the stick approach that you were talking about, we are working with the building department to incorporate some of these carrots that are in place already for some of the inspection process, which is, for instance, right now, passing on your first inspection without needing a reinspection buys you another year on your certificate of compliance. And we're looking at similar things as that for doing well or meeting certain point values on the checklist for the green rental housing as well. So we are exploring what kind of carrots that we can offer. We strategically are not putting those in the policy because we want to be able to change that carrot as appropriate. If we need to offer more time, then we can do that administratively. And that's something that we don't need to go back to council.
Time is not a carrot. Money is a carrot. Time is not a carrot.
Well, time is money sometimes.
Money is time and time is money. Here's a carrot. A tax cost if you use fossil, a tax credit if you create renewable. The carrot is tax credit for creation of renewable, a tax cost if you use fossil. That's the carrot. And if you think I'm wrong, every economist in the country agrees with me. They said it. I didn't make this up. Carrot is tax benefit and tax cost. That's the carrot. There is no other carrot.
So
Time
Ken,
is a carrot.
I think there could be some value in you and I sitting down and discussing what some of these carrots could look like. This is the kind of feedback that we're looking for. We want to hear like what makes this program as valuable.
I want it. I love it. It's a great idea, but putting me out of business and a lot of little guys like me isn't the way. You want to make them want to with a carrot is money. Incentive on tax for creating renewable and a tax for using fossil so that the ecology of the economy of the utilization is such that goes in compliance with every piece of economy since Mesopotamia, which was 5,000 years ago. Nothing has changed in 5,000 years. People incentive, they do it.
So
punishment, they evade it.
Let's work with Jan to share each other's contact information. You and I can talk more about this in depth, and we'll.
Jack, I'm glad that you're there. You sound earnest. We need young guys like you trying to make the world a better place. Putting guys like me out of business, this isn't the way to do it.
The other thing,
why don't you text me your contact information on a private text here, okay?
Oh yeah, great. I'll do that. And
I do want to, sorry to interrupt, but I want to keep us cognizant of the time, and it's just past 1. So it sounds like there's a lot of interest in this and how we, this ordinance is going to evolve. So what I would suggest is that we'll schedule another time once we get sort of a revised point system and it goes through the next phase. And that will provide Zach with, some more feedback and opportunities to talk about the carrots as well as the parameters of the ordinance. So with that, I welcome anyone to, if you want to put just some ideas in the chat of other things that you're interested in. I've heard things like one of the concerns and hopes is that there can be an expansion of recycling, possibly composting for multifamily. Some of that may be dependent on the millage. Other things that you see that are needs from a multifamily standpoint. And I'll be following up with DTE too to see if perhaps we can dovetail some more kind of funding incentives that can parallel this program too. So with that, again, the next meeting is scheduled for September 22nd, and it'll be another Zoom meeting at noontime. And
see the insulation truck? I'm not lying. There it is.
That's great.
See it? USA Installation as we speak.
That's great.
I'm on board.
That's great. Okay, so thank you, everyone, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the 22nd.
Okay, please notify me of that meeting so I don't miss it, okay?
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Zach, I didn't see your contact information come through here, babe.
Yeah, it's in the chat right now.
It is, okay, I got it.
Got it?
ZW, I got you. Okay.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's get together. Thank you so much, Jan, for being here and for doing your job. And I hope I don't come off being too hostile. I'm out of my mind with this. I've tried to do like a simple retirement and pursue some hobbies and stuff. The thing that's threatened me the most now is something I worked my whole pitiful life to accomplish. You know,
Yeah.
these ordinances, I went to U of M. It cost me about, believe it or not, about $10,000 to get a college education between 70 and 67 and 70.